All right, and so today we're talking about the coordinate plane system. And in the coordinate plane system, you want to focus on some things that are just basic. So let's make sure that we understand a few things. Obviously, we know how to graph, and so I'm not going to assume you do. I know that we should by now know this, but we know that the coordinate plane, by definition, has an x-axis, a y-axis, and obviously it contains the origin. So you have the y-axis, which this is the positive infinity side of the y-axis. You have the y-axis down here, and this is the negative infinity part. Here's the x-axis. This is the positive infinity. Here's the x-axis on the other side, but this is our negative infinity. And the origin sits at 0, 0. Remember that in terms of the quadrants, this is quadrant 1, this is quadrant 2, this is quadrant 3, this is quadrant 4. The other thing to consider here is understanding the slope formula, which they're going to ask you for. If you have the slope, remember the slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right. Other things to remember is that they do refer to this as rise over run. Remember that in the first quadrant, both the coordinate points are positive. In quadrant 2, the x is negative, the y is positive. In quadrant 3, both are negative. And in quadrant 4, the x is positive, the y is negative. Remember, with respect to slopes, so let's talk about slopes real quick, since I already mentioned that there. One of the elements of the slope is there are two types of lines. When we talk about slope, they're either parallel lines, and if they're parallel lines, they have the same slope. So an example would be y equals 3 over 4x plus 7, and a y2 line would be something to the effect of 3 over 4x minus 2. Those are parallel lines because they have the same slope. When we talk about the slope, we're talking about the m value. If they're perpendicular, then the slopes are negative reciprocals of each other. So in this case, let's say you had a line that was y equals 3 over 4x plus 7. A line perpendicular to that would be something to the effect of y2 equals negative 4 over 3x. And then whatever this would be. Let's say this is also plus 7. It does not have to have the same y-intercept. So a question for you. One of the first questions that they throw your way is this one. They talk about the system of equation. So this one says the system of equations above. Actually, in this case, it's going to be below, because I'm going to write it below. So the system of equations below has infinitely many solutions. So right away, remember there are 3 systems, and I've discussed them with you ad nauseum at this point. We will talk about it in a moment. So this says if A, and A is like a letter we're looking for, is a constant, what is the value of A? So they begin with the system that they're going to give you, which is right here. They're going to give you 15x minus 12y is equal to 63. That's the first line they give you. And then they give you this question here. Now I'm going to circle the, or highlight the A with a black marker there. So AY plus 5x equals 21. Now, you don't have to, it doesn't take much for you to realize that 21 times 3 will be 63, right? So that means that if I multiply this times 3, I'll have a 15x. And if I have a 4 here, a number here, times 3, that will give me a negative 12. So that A, in this case, has to be a negative 4. Just remember the product of these two has to give you, in this case, the negative 12. So that A has to be equal to negative 4. So I don't know why they throw this question here, but I think one of the reasons is because they are actually trying to get you to realize, you know, how the coefficients play out. If anything, I would have given you a question relating to slopes here, so we'll look at those in a minute. So they do give us a question here, which kind of relates back to this. They give us this question. So they say we are given the equation y equals 1/3 x plus 6, and they're saying the graph of the equation above in the xy plane crosses the y-axis at the intercept 0b. What is the value of b? This is a good question. Okay, so one of the elements that you need to keep in mind here is that this equation is y equals mx plus b. And so if they're asking you for b, they're giving you 0b, but this 0b is just to trick your mind, is 0y. So technically you have b equals 0 times x plus b. Now here's the thing, instead of b, you know that the intercept in any equation is when x is 0. So if you go back to the original equation, you know that y equals 1/3 times 0 plus 6 means that y is 6, which gives you the intercept 0, 6. And very simply stated, the answer choice here would simply be that this is the intercept. And this is what this equates to, by the way. All right, so just remember the intercept. You will need to know the standard formula. Remember the standard formula, because they're going to ask you to maybe rewrite an equation. the standard formula, we would have ax plus by equal to c. Our slope in this case would be negative a over b. And if I were to transform this back to slope-intercept, I would simply subtract the ax, so I would have by equals negative ax plus c. And I would be dividing this by b on both sides. Notice that I would be dividing this on all three terms. So that's where they're obtaining a slope, where this is your slope, your m, and that is equal to negative ab. They are also going to ask you, in this case, for the distance formula. The distance formula, if you recall, is the square root. So in this case, we would have x2 minus x1 squared. And this would be plus y2 minus y1 squared. So the distance formula is another formula they may ask you. They may give you 2 points. They may give you the distance. I don't know. Depends on the question. They also may give you the midpoint formula, or ask you for the midpoint of something. And so if you recall the midpoint formula, you simply take x1 plus x2 and divide that by 2. And that's your x coordinate. And then y1 plus y2, the order doesn't matter. Remember, that's commutative property. All of that divided by 2, and all of this is your midpoint. The other type of question that they may throw your way would involve a chart. So if they give you a chart, let's talk about how you would approach a question such as that. And so in this case, let me type in the question and I'll give you the information. So in this question, basically they say 2 construction workers are digging holes using shovels and measuring their dig rates to determine who is faster. Both construction workers in holes start in holes that are below ground level at their assigned digging sites. They dig vertically down through the dirt. The depth of the ground level, D, in meters, and M, in this case, the construction worker's Elijah has reached in terms of time T in minutes after he started digging, is described by the function d of t is equal to 1.8 t plus 4.5. So in other words, when t is 0, we are at 4.5 to start. The first thing I want you to do whenever you see a question like this, if you notice the time is increasing and by 1 increment, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what I want you to note immediately is what is going on here. So if I were to take 8.7 and subtract 6.5, you see that there's a difference of 2.2. I would then take these two as well, and I would subtract, I would take 10.9 as an example. Let me just write it so you can follow my logic. 10.9 minus the 8.7, and notice that that difference is also 2.2. So it seems that the rate is consistent at 2.2 as you look at the differences between these as increments in terms of change, right? So that is an important component to understand of the question. So the question that I'm going to throw your way is, let me type it down here as well. So the question that they pose relating to this, back to this chart, is how long will it take Betty in minutes to reach a depth of 19.7 meters below ground level? And they give you the following answer choices. They start with With 5, they give you 6 minutes, they give you 7 minutes, and they give you 8 minutes. And so just using this logic or this concept to start, since we know it's approximately a 2.2 minute difference, if I add 2.2, I would be at minute 6, and that would put me in 19.7. So that would make B your answer choice. Now that was very simple because they gave you something that is pretty direct. All right. We have another question similar to this in this case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the chart that I have up here. So let me do that. So they're giving us another question in this case, similar to this in terms of setup. So let me type that one up as well. So in this question, they begin with another person who is digging into the same ground level. So it says Zeb begins to dig in an additional hole at the same time as Elijah. Zeb's depth below ground level in meters for the first 5 minutes of digging is described in the table below. If Zeb digs at a constant rate, how many minutes will it take Zeb and Elijah to be at the same depth of ground level? So this is also another good question where they ask you to in a sense be parallel. So if you take these equations, for example, you know that for Elijah, going back to the question, in Elijah's case, Elijah had a formula that was given to you, an equation where d of t was equal to 1.8 t plus 4.5, and they gave that to you in the question prior. So it says, in this case, what you need to do is you need an equation for Zeb. So let's choose 2 points. I would take 2 points in Zeb's case, and let's find a slope. So at this point, I'm going to take these 2 points. I'm going to use the 1, so I'm using 1 comma 7.7, and I'm going to use 2 comma 9.4, and I'm going to find a slope for Zeb. So this is Zeb. So if we use the slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, I'll find the slope. So this will give me 9.4 minus 7.7 over basically 2 minus 1. So this tells me the slope is 1.7. You kind of already knew that, because if you took these two and separated them or subtracted them for their difference, you would have known. And so that tells me that Zeb's equations, given that this is the intercept when x is 0, y is 6, would have been, for Zeb, that equation would be d of t is equal to 1.7 t and then plus 6. And again, you know that because when x is 0, y is 6, that's your intercept. All right. Now, because we want them to be at the same location, we would take 1.8 t plus 4.5 and set that equal to 1.7 t plus 6. Now, let's subtract the 4.5. So I'm going to subtract 4.5 on this side and this side. Always in balance. And I'm going to also subtract the 1.7 t over here. At this point, remember that all of this cancels, all of this cancels. And now you are going to be left with 0.1 t is equal to in essence, this is 6.0, so this will be 1.5. When I divide by point t on both sides, that means that t is going to be equal to 15. And t equal to 15. So let's look at our answer choices. So in this case, they give us answer choices A, B, C, D. So let me just write it here. So answer choice A, making this a little smidge bigger. Answer choice A is 1.7. Answer choice B is 4.5. Answer choice D is 10. C is 10 and D is 15. So obviously this would be our answer choice. Would be D. Awesome. So that's another type of question they may ask you using the the formula. So you need to be able to do those. Okay, going to present you with now going over to the quizzes, and let's take a look at the quiz questions based on what they give you.